Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Yak Gadget. For all your fine quality kayak fishing needs, go to yakgadget.com. Pelican cases, coolers, and lighting. Go to pelican.com. And the 153 Bait Company. For all your hard, soft plastic bait needs, go to the 153anglers.com. Now let's talk about some awesome products. Yo, what's up?
What's going on, y'all?
Hi.
Welcome back to the final cast. It's Thursday. Hi,
Yeah,
my
buddy.
boy.
Yeah, buddy. Taking Brian's line. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, buddy.
Actually, he hasn't said that in a while.
I know he hasn't. But you ever notice that Brian talks with his hands? You ever, when we were doing those tournament stuff, he was like talking and he's like the whole time with his hands. It's hilarious. It's like,
I bet he hates that we all like pick on him every time. Something stupid every time we start a podcast.
why
You
pick
guys
on
are making me want to sit on my hands because I do that.
Oh no! Like it's the same with Brian. It's the same thing. We just give him a hard time because he's the OG. So, all right. This week we have Melissa Keg. Melissa hails from the Cincinnati area. I'm not exactly sure where.
Yeah.
But she is newly part of the Strictly Sail team. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Melissa also has a really cool YouTube channel. I think it's Girl Gone Fishing.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Or is it Fish In?
No, it's Girl Gone Fishing, all one word. If you put spaces in, you get the bikini fishing girls, and that's not me.
So, and also she has spent some quality time in the new Hobie Lynx. So
Yep.
Brad and I thought it'd be a good idea to invite her on the episode to talk about her experiences so far with that. And so Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Brad, how you doing, dude?
Good, man. This Hobie Lynx episode has been a long time coming. I mean, we've been trying to reach out to people and getting it to work out, but
Yeah, we were trying
finally
to get Johnny Graves on there, but he canceled on us twice. So we were like, let's ask somebody else.
Well, glad to know I'm at the bottom of the list, but you know.
no. Well, that was before you even had the links.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah,
I mean,
John had it first. He got it first.
John does his podcast and stuff, so we know he's crazy busy, and
Yeah.
so it's nothing against John or whatever. We just kind of felt like we were bothering him at that point. So it's like, you know, but Melissa, you've actually spent quite some time in it now.
Yeah.
I know you said the other day you had fished 10 tournaments in it, but I know at that time you were fishing like tournaments almost every weekend. So, but before we get into the Hobie Lynx, let's hear about you, how you got into kayak fishing, how long you've been doing it. And by the way, you were actually probably one of the most friendly kayak anglers I've ever met. And we haven't even really actually met like in person, but one of the first tournaments I did was at Cowan Lake, and I don't even remember which one it was, but I paddled across the lake and I ran across you and Bert, and I paddled kind of close to you, or actually I think I was behind you, but you made it a point to wave and say hello, and it was super cool. Like, you know, because you know, a lot of people when they get into the tournament scene, they start getting like real protective of their areas or whatever. And I wasn't trying to fish the area. I was just kind of passing through, and I was new at it too. And I think at that time you were fairly new at it. And, but I just wanted to let you know, like, that was pretty cool of you. You were really, really friendly. You know, and sometimes, you know, you don't get that out on the water in the middle of a tournament, but thank you for being so kind.
Oh, that's cool. Now, I wish everyone had their names on their kayaks because, like, you know, when I'm starting fishing, it's that guy in that kayak, you know, and right away, being one of the few girls, everyone knows me and they're like, hey, Melissa. And I'm like, hey, you. So,
I ran into you last year on a local pond.
yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I recognize who that is.
It was the weekend.
And I introduced myself to you, and you said we'd met before, and I was all, dope.
Yeah, I think that was all. I also met you on Cowan Lake as well, I think, with Bert.
We're getting to the point where, I feel like coming from my foosball background, I feel like you should introduce yourself to new people, because it's really hard to come into a group, even if it's not clicky, you feel like it is, you feel like you're the newcomer and the outsider to the group. And so I kind of take it on myself to introduce myself and try to be welcoming to everyone. But I'm getting to the point now after a couple of years, everyone's like, we've met like 8 times. And I'm all, oh no.
Yeah. I'm bad with memorizing people too. Like I did that with Jim Klein, and he was like, "Hey," I was like, "Hey, I don't know." He's like, "I'm Jim." I was like, "Oh, okay."
And during COVID, it was that guy in the kayak with the beard. Like everyone was that guy in the kayak with the beard, and now everyone's shaving off the beards. I'm like, I don't know you. They're like, we've met a bunch of times. I'm like, sorry.
That's funny.
But and it's hard to know Brad because he changes kayaks like he changes underwear. So.
Right.
I do that on purpose, man.
This year you've been solid. You stayed in the same one so far this year, right?
But it's the paddle, right? I recognized the paddle after you said we knew each other.
Yeah. Bending Branch's paddle is hard to miss.
Right.
Especially that one.
Yeah.
That one's pretty bright. So Melissa, tell us about yourself. How'd you get into kayak fishing? How long you been at it? What do you enjoy about it? What's your favorite kayak? Whatever you want to share.
Well, I'm nothing really that interesting. I only started fishing a little over 10 years ago, learned to fish really late in life, didn't fish as a kid, had no idea, but I did paddle as a kid. I played on the professional foosball tour for 14 years, followed the tour all around the U.S., actually won women's doubles at the U.S. Open, which put me on the World Cup team. So I got to go to France and play. So that was kind of cool. But I got in a car wreck where someone T-boned my car running a red light, and I couldn't play for about a year because my neck was all screwed up. So the guy I was dating at the time lived in Northern California and said, well, do you just want to come out on my boat? And I'm all, yeah, not really. But finally, I'm like, yeah, I'll go out on your boat. Went out like 2 times, just watched him try to fish, and went home and bought Kevin Van Dam's book on how to fish and said, I can do this better. So that was the start of my obsession. I actually learned to fish on Clear Lake and Lake Berryessa in the California Delta. So, I mean, amazing. I thought 6-pound bass were just what we did, but
not here in Ohio.
Yeah.
That's what I learned when I decided that was the end of that for me, and I came back to Ohio. And I was kind of like, well, what do I do now? I'm kind of hooked on this bass thing, and so I started looking for kayaks and found Strictly Sail, started Facebook stalking the kayak groups, too chicken to join from like 2016, 2017. I kind of just watched from a distance, really too afraid to make that step and do it. But 2018, I finally entered Buckeye kayak fishing. I think I entered the Buckeye Blitz for the first time, and I had been floating the Whitewater River. I would use Whitewater canoe rental, and they would shuttle me on that part of the Whitewater River. Really nice guys, a beautiful river, about like 3 inches deep and totally non-threatening. So I entered this Buckeye Blitz, and they say, yeah, you just put the fish on this measuring board and take its picture. I seriously thought I was being punked. Like, these little guys are not going to stay on this board. So that was my first try. And then I did the Bluegrass Kayak Anglers that AJ McWhorter used to run down in Kentucky. After looking on Facebook for a couple years, I decided this is the best run group ever. And I fished 1 tournament, and then Hobie hired him away, and there was no more group. But the funny story about that tournament is I was terrified of lakes. I'm scared of like this lake monster that's going to come and eat me in my kayak. And I backed my kayak up onto a point so that no one could come at me from behind, so I was kind of safe. And then I cast out and I caught a 20.5-inch bass and tied for big bass at the tournament. I'm all, man, this fishing stuff is easy. But then it was never the same after that.
That's awesome.
So that's pretty much how I got started. And after that, I met Bert at that tournament, and he kind of buddied up with me and was real nice to me, and started fishing with me and getting me into the Buckeye kayak. He dragged me into the camping crew with like Skidmore and Hannigan and those guys and Weicker, and that's just absolutely amazing. And I've been totally addicted and all in ever since.
That's a good group to be hanging out with too, man.
They don't tell me anything.
Really?
Not that I'd ask. No, I'm kind of stubborn. Like, I'm going to figure it out on my own. I don't need your help. But no, they don't volunteer. I don't ask. I should start asking.
Heck yeah.
Well, I think you've been figuring out like the past year. I think it was like about, I don't know, maybe in the summertime, I kind of saw where you were making that turn and you started putting some good fish up on the board on a consistent basis. And that just kind of is, that just goes to show like that the most important thing is just time on the water. Like you can have people tell you all kinds of stuff, but really it's the experience that, the more time that you spend, the better you're going to be as an angler overall, especially in the tournament scene.
Right.
And I mean, you're not sticking to like one lake, you're going all over the place, in a tri-state kind of area. And, you're going to stumble across those patterns that are, you'll start figuring it out, because I remember when I first saw you out there, you were in the little sit inside and you had like one or two rods and that was it.
Yeah.
And I knew Bert was nearby because I could smell a cigar. So.
Yeah. But that was the best way to learn because, like I said, I came from foosball and I kind of like, I don't say I retired from foosball. It's a hiatus. You never leave foosball. You always go back to it. But I quit as a pro, and I was paying the highest entry fees and I had the most pressure because the new people want to beat you. You have the target on the back. I wasn't the best by any means, but, I was up there. And in fishing, I got to go in as a total brand new beginner. I had a dinky little paddle kayak. I had no electronics. I had, not good stuff. And I had no pressure, no expectations. I was the underdog. If I caught a fish, everyone's like, yay, she caught a fish, So while everyone else is out there like, I have to get 5 20-inch fish. I'm all, yeah, I got a 12-inch fish. I'm happy, So it gave me 2018, 2019, no pressure, no expectations. I just sort of got to get my feet under me, get a little confidence. I'm really insecure when I first start doing something and then I gain confidence and I'm like, get my teeth into it and I love it. But getting started on it, especially alone when you don't really have anyone teaching you, it's intimidating and it's hard, which is why I really want to try to welcome the beginners, make it easier for them. But in 2020, I work at Jungle Gyms in Eastgate. I work at their tasting bar and their beer and wine department. And they cut me down to 5 hours a week during the whole like global pandemic thing. And so the first couple of weeks I sat at home and I ate a lot and kind of went crazy. But then I decided I was going to start entering the KBF monthly online tournaments. And I literally was in my kayak 18 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I think of it as like bass fishing boot camp. I said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to learn to do this. I'm going to go and I'm going to, fish as much as I can and figure out like why I'm not catching these fish. And I started studying Google Earth. Someone said to me, I'm not going to tell you where I catch fish. Go find your own fish. So I said, okay. And I started studying Google Earth and I started following the rivers, all over Ohio and saying, okay, if a river can flood something, that something must have, a variety of fish. And I just started like making a list and I've still got this list of about 30 places I haven't had a chance to try yet. And so I found some places and I found some fish and I placed second in a KBF tournament, but I credit COVID, and that whole pandemic thing for giving me the time. Like when else in your life do you have 18 hours a day, 6 days a week to go out and just fish? So like you said, time on the water, that really made a difference. It gave me confidence in, certain techniques and it gave me confidence that I was able to, maybe compete with some of these people. But then someone said to me, you're never going to get anywhere if you just fish the same lakes. And I thought, well, that's true in a way, but it's also not true in a way because I didn't have a fishing background. I was starting at zero. I had to learn how to tie a Palomar knot. I'm still not really good at restringing my bait casters. I didn't know anything. And I didn't have a dad that fished or a brother that fished or mother that fished, and I don't have a fishing buddy to explain this stuff to me. And so it was just a huge learning curve. But 2021, I made it my goal to start following the BKFT tour, like around the state more, trying what I think of as away lakes, and so I'm working on that part of my experience now, like how do you break down a new lake and that kind of thing. And it's just been, gosh, learning stuff is so much fun. I'm 48 years old. When you get to my age, new stuff is just not always there, and so to have new stuff and to get to experience this, I'm having so much fun, loving the people I meet, loving the things I get to do. It's just been great.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I love the
Google
energy.
Earth is awesome too, by the way, because now I don't know. It doesn't, I don't think it works as well like in Ohio lakes as it does like some Tennessee lakes that you can see. But what's really cool, if you do Google Earth Pro, you can do like back history shot,
No.
like satellite shots, and you can see where they draw down lakes.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you're into like fishing like Tennessee, you can mark like a boulder that's there, but it's underwater like normal pool.
Right.
And you can actually there's there's ways to actually transfer that information, those waypoints, to your fish finders and all kinds of cool stuff like that. It's just kind of weird though in Ohio. I don't know if we draw down our lakes enough to kind of do
Not
that.
really.
Yeah, I haven't really messed around with it with Ohio stuff, but a lot of times if I know we're going to Dale Hollow or whatever,
Yeah.
I'll try to look up some stuff or some of those Tennessee lakes like that because it works real well. Just because they do such crazy drawdowns. What is it? Sometimes like 15 feet, 20 feet.
Yeah.
Crazy, so,
When we were there in September, it was down 10 or 11 feet.
yeah, and they keep going too. So,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
It was weird.
Is that something that would work for Kentucky Lake? Because through 3 weeks from now,
probably.
Kentucky Lake is going to be my first big like national KBF Trail away tournament, and it's about time to start the Google Earth study and figure out where the heck I'm going to put my kayak in on that giant lake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't messed around with it a lot.
Oh, I've used it. I know how to use it and everything.
Have you seen the feature where you can look back
Oh yeah,
at its
yeah.
history? So click down through it and see if you can see a drawdown on it, because Kentucky Lake, I would assume, is sort of like those, those lakes where it's like impounded and then they'll draw it down. I don't know 100% though.
Right.
I've never fished Kentucky Lake, but you may be able to find cover like like offshore cover that you normally can't see during summer pool. So because they'll start drawing down like those Tennessee lakes once it's crazy.
Early.
So early. Like
Yeah.
here we don't draw them down till like November.
Yep.
They do it when everybody's going back to school, which is now. They'll start drawing it down at the end of August, because we went first week of September and they'd already drawn it down 10 feet.
Yeah. You could fish like the offshore grass patches, like right there in the middle in the marina. It was crazy.
It's weird. It's so weird because you're like, it doesn't make any sense because their weather stays warmer longer. So,
yep.
But they're like, once everybody goes back to school, the tourism stuff dies down, and it just gives them. If I remember correctly, asking the one guy that has the marina Eastport, asking Richard, he said that there's a couple reasons, and one of the main ones that if I remember was it gives everybody time to work on their stuff. Like on their docks and that sort of thing. So, but in the fact that the tourism's dying down. But
yeah.
All right, let's talk Hobie.
Yes.
So, Melissa, what were you in before?
I had an Old Town Loon 106 Angler paddle kayak.
You still have it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, did you hop from that into the Hobie Lynx?
I did. I was lucky enough to be, like you said, voted onto the Strictly Sail and Kayak fishing team, which I'm very thankful for. Funny story about that. Bert told me first. He said, I have something to tell you. He says, Brian Tacey wants to talk to you. He goes, but I said I had to talk to you first because I'm afraid you're going to say something stupid when he talks to you. And I'm all, what are you talking about? He says, they want to invite you on the Strictly Sail team and sponsor you by giving you a kayak for the season. And he said, I'm really afraid you're going to, your answer is going to be something stupid. And I said, what have I done to deserve that? He said, see, I told you it was going to be stupid. I really don't think that's stupid. I think it's a very legitimate question. I mean, like my whole life, I've fought against being any special treatment for being a girl, and in kayak fishing, I definitely don't want to get ahead in any way for being a girl. I don't think you gain respect that way, by playing off that. I want to be equal to everyone. I just want to learn to fish and catch fish. The fish don't care who I am, what I look like, anything,
right.
And so at first I was very trepidatious about it. Like, I don't know. I mean, I love Strictly Sail. When I was 12 years old, my family bought our first windsurfer from Steve Tacey, who started Strictly Sail. So I have had a lot of respect and faith in them for a long time. I bought a Hobie outfitter from them when my ex from California wanted to come here and fish. We bought it's a tandem Outback, pedal kayak, which is sitting in my basement. I think of it as my giant like white whale that's stuck in my basement. I can't get it out. But, so I bought a couple things from them. I love them. It was in my long-term plan once I won some tournaments to go to them and beg them to love me and let me have a free hat, but it happened a lot faster than I expected and totally threw me off. But when Sean Skidmore told me it was because they like my videos.
Yep.
I was like, I put like 30 hours into every one of those videos and they darn well had better like them. So
yeah,
they want to give me a kayak for the season because they like my videos, then it just means they have good taste.
Well, I got to say, like, companies like that, they like the social media aspect. And I was going to say that about you. Your social media presence is good. I mean, your videos, your posts, you interact with other anglers on the group
I feel
page.
so awkward on social media. I hate it.
Yeah. But I mean, they see that
you're like Brad. Brad's like super awesome at social media and he's extremely awkward in person.
I don't think I am, but whatever.
I'm kidding, dude.
No, but like those companies, they see your value in that. That's why.
Yeah. That's what it is. Don't worry about the girl thing because it is. You being on that team was not a surprise to me whatsoever. You've been a part of that group. I mean, you're friends with Bert. You buy a lot of stuff from Strictly Sail. You support them, and you've really started knocking it out of the park with the YouTube thing. And then not only that, but you're going around and you're traveling and you're doing all the tournaments, and it just makes sense. I mean, if you were Mark Keg, you'd be on the team. Like it's not a big deal. Like it wasn't about them needing a female angler, in my opinion. Now I can't speak for what Brian and them were looking for, but you fit the profile of what the paddle shops are looking for. You have a strong social media, you get out, you're doing the videos. I remember you and I talked a little bit on Messenger about like recording and that sort of thing, and I think I gave you some like a suggestion in regards to like the camera and like that sort of thing. And it's you're doing awesome with it, and it'll only get better, like and just keep on putting forth the effort with it, and those doors will keep opening for you. So there's a lot of people that we see who are like, oh, well, why don't I get it on a paddle shop? I should be on, and I should be sponsored or whatever, but they have a piss poor social media. Like it's like, yeah, you could get on there and just say, hey, this rod's great, blah blah blah, and tag St. Croix in it or whatever. But if you're taking crap photos and you know what I mean, and it looks bad, it's not inviting for that company to support you.
Right.
And that was one of my big things always, is like when I try to get out there, if I'm going to do it, take quality pictures, like that sort of thing. Brad and I, we've fished together. When I get out there, I usually try to shoot a couple good photos of Brad, and that sort of thing. I've always been wanting to get a good camera, but kind of splurged on GoPros last year instead. So
yeah.
I should have bought maybe half the GoPros that I did.
And do you notice like everyone's starting to have that GoPro Max with the 360?
Yeah.
People are messaging me like, why don't you have the GoPro 360? But I did a joint video with my buddy Adrian Warfield, and he was like, he just got the Max, and so I took the footage from his camera and the footage from my camera and tried to put them together. We did this stupid little challenge video where I let him pick the lake and pick the lures, and he picked his favorite lake with this one spot where a jig always caught a fish. And okay, I learned my lesson. Next time, neutral lake, neutral lures. But trying to integrate his 360 footage into, I use the Adobe Premiere Elements to do my editing. It was awful.
Yeah,
Like
it's hard.
you had to like, freeze the 360 footage and in the view you wanted to get it in. I mean, it took me like a week just to get the footage in the timeline. And I was like, I'm never going to do that Max again. And now everyone has the Max and people are messaging me like, when don't you have the Max? Oh my God.
I wasn't a fan of that because I saw how hard it was to edit in other, like you said, other camera angles and stuff. And it's a giant pain.
Right.
And I think when it first even came out, like it had its own almost separate like software thing that you had to use.
Yeah.
And I was like, nope, I'll just get multiple angles. And I think when I bought my GoPros, I found a really good deal on them. So I was like, I think I bought the 8s when they came out. There was like $100 off. So instead of being $299, I got them for $199. But
yeah, if you get them after the new model comes out, you can get the last year's model like really well, like good price.
Yeah.
But I'll have to try that.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
Brad needs to film his river trips. We need to see more about these smallmouth.
That's the one reason why I don't do it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm currently trying to edit my Great Miami River video, and it's not as riveting when your fish are this long. I caught a lot of fish. If you want to know, the this year's population of smallmouth in the Great Miami River is just enormous because we caught like 50 this big. Those little guys are going to grow up just for you, Brad.
I hope so, but I catch a lot of those too. I mean, there's days where I'll catch 20 of those,
Right. Do you let them run out there and hope that something else comes in?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought about it. I wouldn't. Like, I would never do that. But I was like, but if.
Yeah.
I mean, I've caught little ones and had big ones beating up on the little one. Not necessarily eating it, but trying to steal the bait out of its mouth. And I mean, I had that happen at St. Clair where I caught a 17 and saw one bigger literally bum rush it and just headbutt it, knock the lure loose. I was so mad, dude. I'm like, oh my God. I didn't even eat the bait, you know what I mean? I was expecting the 19, like it was probably 19 or 20 inch smallmouth. There's this dark shadow comes up, just headbutts the 17, and the bait pops loose, and I can see it dropping down. I'm like, oh, he's gonna hit it. Nope, just let it hit.
Oh man, that sucks.
All that dude's like just jealous, man.
That sucks.
Jealousy. But so the Hobie Lynx, you got into the Hobie Lynx. You fished 10 tournaments, I think is what you said. Probably maybe 11 or 12 now.
Yeah, it's been like 8 or 9, like 9 in person, and I think 4 online so far.
So you've done all lakes or lake and river?
Have I taken it on the river? I took it on the river for the Cincinnati Kayak Fishing Rivers Tournament 2 weeks ago because I was fishing a deeper part of the Great Miami. But the Lynx has been totally amazing in every aspect. My problem with Brian at first was they didn't have any kayaks that I could car top. You know, like I wanted a pedal kayak. I've been looking for a pedal kayak for years, kind of hope to trade my tandem outfitter for something else. But still, those pedal kayaks are over 100 pounds. I can't lift that up on top of my car. I mean, I'm a tough girl, but, I can't bench press that stuff. So Brian said, I've been wanting to do this for you, but I don't have any kayaks that you can lift. So when they got into Lynx, I'm like, that thing looks weird. I don't know about that thing, but he's like, just try it. And of course, once I tried it, I loved it. But what we're finding is the Lynx is maybe not the best shallow river boat. So he actually let me use the iTrek 9 for the river tournament a couple days ago because I knew I was going to be dragging on a shallow river, and they have the inflatable iTrek ultralight. So I use that for the shallow river, but like everything else, that Lynx is the absolute perfect boat for me, and they're going to have to pry it out of my hands if they ever want it back. Just saying, Brian, if you're listening.
I got the specs pulled up on this because you mentioned them, and 45 pounds.
Yep.
Wow, I didn't know it was
that's without the seat, right?
Yeah, fully rigged is only 61.
Yeah, I mean that's really light for a kayak. I mean, there's not many kayaks in that range.
It is. And of course, now I have the side A trails, and I have a custom made Brian Tacey special front A trail that everyone's jealous about in the Lynx owners group. So, but that adds weight to it. But yeah, it's amazing. My old town was 54 pounds. So this is even better than that. And car topping that Lynx at the end of a tournament is a dream. I mean, I don't ever want to say that, like, it's a good boat for a girl, because again, I hate bringing up the girl thing, but seriously, it is a fantastic boat for anyone who is not strong enough to lift something big and heavy up on their car. Girl, guy, whatever.
I mean, mine's 90 pounds and I can lift more than that, but it's not safe to do it.
Right.
It's
I
awkward.
about blew my back out with my Coosa HD, which is like 80 something pounds, because I bumped a stroller and it started to twist when I was carrying it like sideways.
Oh, no.
And I almost hit my ex's car. So I twisted it back the other direction and twisted my back out because I was trying to carry that thing.
Right.
And I was using the side handles, which is usually no big deal, but I accidentally hooked one of the strollers.
Oh no.
But it's the specs are impressive. It's 36 inches wide, which means it's going to be super stable.
It is so stable. Yeah. I have tried, I've been trying to put it in the gnarliest, waviest, windiest conditions I can do, like for videos to test it, and then stand up. So I've been progressively have more faith in it. And so a giant wake boat will go by. I just fished 3 Erie Harbor tournaments in a row up on East Harbor, and these huge wake boats would go by, the boats with the boat wakes, and I'd be like, ooh, put my nose in it, stand up, get the camera running, and it's just nothing. At the end of the day, people would be like, wow, it got a little sketchy out there. I'm all, it did? I didn't notice, because that thing is solid. It's built kind of like a paddleboard. And I think I have the advantage of having windsurfed when I was younger, because if I get on that and take my shoes off, I just feel like, I'm on my windsurf board, and, it balances great. And at first I was putting one foot on either side of the center line, and standing straight. Now I'll stand sideways. I can cast in any direction. I'm not Christine Fisher. I'm not going to stand on the seat, because I'm probably a decade older than she is, and that's not going to happen. But I've stood on the nose. I've climbed over the seat and stood on the back just to show people it is so stable. The seat is so comfortable. I mean, it's amazing. Of course, I throw my kayak cushion on there too, because why not have a little more comfort? Yeah. But I think the biggest complaint people are going to have with it is winter fishing. I don't know how that's going to go, because when you're in super wavy, the waves do break over the, the deck. So I actually had to break down and buy, not that it's a bad thing, but I had to buy the tin tags, the Blue Fox tin tags, because I had the old Flip It IDs, before Catch bought Flip It, and the little Ziploc bags that hold your, paper ID, they're waterproof. But when the waves came over the deck of the Lynx, the water would stand in the catch board. And I didn't realize that my tourney tags were completely disintegrating. So they just completely dissolved, sitting in the water. So I had to break down a couple weeks ago and get the upgraded tin tags for that. But other than that, I don't know how it's going to be when it's cold out. I think I'm going to need to buy those neoprene socks or something, because I'm still taking that thing out. I love it.
You mentioned standing on the nose and the back, and I think that's what impressed me the most when I think you posted it in a video, right?
At Nimasilla, I took it down to the ramp and let some of the other guys take it out, and try it. And Weicker was like, I bet you can't stand on the nose. I'm like, I'll stand on the nose. We're in 2 inches of water. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Probably I'd hit my head on the ramp, but
standing on the nose of that thing, if you did that on a kayak, you're seeing the kayak sit in the water like this. You stand on the nose of that Lynx, it was still flat on the surface. And I was impressed. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. It's really, really stable. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I've sat on the side with my legs over, just chilling and fishing, and I mean, I still can't believe how lucky I am that I get to fish out of that. I don't have a very good job, and I spend most of my money doing fun stuff. So I don't think I would have been able to afford, a Hobie like this and all the accessories, and for Strictly Sail Kayak to give me this opportunity, it just still seems sometimes like it isn't real. And then I'm going to wake up and I'm back in my little paddle kayak, which I love Old Town, and I love my paddle kayak. I've been a faithful believer in paddling Old Town since I was really young with their canoes and everything. They track well, they're comfortable, they're stable. But man, that Lynx, I mean, it's like they made it for me. It's like everything I ever wanted in a boat, there it is.
That's cool.
So how much did you like being able to have the pedal drive, and how much easier did it make for you to start fishing like hands-free like that?
Well, you had mentioned that you saw an uptick in my tournament results. So I got the Lynx in June, and I was looking at my tournament results. Now, I did get my first ever in-person limit in May at East Harbor in my paddle kayak, which I'm really proud of that I achieved that, with my paddle kayak without electronics. I finally caught 5 fish in an in-person tournament. I'd done it in online before, but, and so then right after that in June, I got the Lynx, and the difference it makes is just unbelievable. It makes me almost feel guilty because with my YouTube channel, I feel like my fan base, I guess, is kind of like the newer people or the people who want to get into kayak fishing and are intimidated by it. I get a lot of messages from people who say, I'd really like to do a tournament, but I have a paddle kayak. I don't have a fish finder. I don't have a lot of money. I have one rod. And they're like, but then I saw you doing it, Yeah. So I feel like I'm cheating on those people. I don't want to leave them behind. I want to find a way to still be accessible and show people that anyone can do this, but I can't go back because I love those pedals. And people had told me before, oh, you're not going to like Hobie because you have to pull this little lever to go forward and backward. Oh. No, it doesn't matter.
No, I mean, I've been in a couple Hobies, and I've had people say the same thing to me. That lever system did not bother me whatsoever.
It does not matter. It's fantastic.
It's nice.
It's amazing. Just the amount of casts you can make compared to a paddle kayak. On a windless day, I'm going to say you make 30% more casts. Because on a windless day, you can anchor, you can just float around in your paddle kayak, but you get a little bit of wind, and I'm talking like 4 or 5 mile per hour winds. Yep. It is cast, put the rod down, paddle, cast, put the rod down, paddle. Then you get up into the 7 to 9 mile per hour winds, and it's start to pick the rod up, put the rod down and paddle. Start to pick the rod up, put the rod down and paddle. It's nonstop. And, it gets really frustrating. And I try so hard to keep a positive attitude, but there were a couple tournaments where I was just ready to start cussing.
I feel your pain.
Then you get those days like East Harbor. I fished a day where we had 18 mile per hour sustained winds with gusts up to like 24. And it was like, these waves were breaking over the boat. And I just was doing this little leisurely pedal and staying in place and catching fish because the fish wanted worms sitting on the ground, not moving. And the dude I was fishing with goes, "Whew, this is hard." And I look over and he's turned his torpedo on. I'm like, you lazy. I mean, it wasn't even a hard pedal. It was just like a little, leisurely. Yeah. People pay a lot of money to go to gyms and do that stuff, man. And we're out there having fun, catching fish, getting a little exercise. Oh man, it is just, I still can't believe how lucky I am to get out there on that Lynx and be doing this. Oh, it's so much fun.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things. My favorite thing about being in a pedal drive is fishing windy days on the lakes, man. I remember going up north and finally being like, all right, here we are. This lake I really like, but I'm always frustrated because it's usually really windy. And like you said, if it's just 5 miles per hour, it's even worse. And when we're on this lake, 5 miles an hour feels like 15.
Yeah.
And I had the Jackson Big Rig FD out there, and I just aimed into the wind, and I would just pedal 2 or 3 times pedal 2 or 3 times, wait a few seconds, pedal 2 or 3 times, and it's basically like being anchored. You know, I was moving around a little bit, which I didn't mind because it kept me from casting in the same exact spot over and over again. So where I was throwing, I was kind of covering, you know, the spot itself by drifting a little bit left or right. But it's one of those things, like, if you do get into the tournament game or just lake fishing in general, like I haven't fished a lake yet this year because I don't have a pedal drive anymore. And it's like, oh, like, you know, I hated it, despised it last year when I did Cowan Lake and it was super windy one day. And I'm like, this is awful. Like, I cannot.
Yeah, I think I was in that paddling in that tournament too. There was a terrible one.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is obnoxious. I didn't have fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and like, Bert's all messaging me like, just slow down and finesse fish. And I'm all, shut up.
Yeah, like, I can't finesse fish here. I'm moving 10 miles an hour.
Yes.
Like, it's nothing finessey. All I should do is troll crankbaits at this point.
He's like, you got to throw it up to shore and let it sit. I'm all, stop talking to me.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of paddling in the wind either, especially in a bona fide, because that's not a very good kayak in the wind.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't want to discourage people with paddle kayaks to not try out, you know, try out these tournaments, because we've all done it. You know, we've started there. You find a cove, you hide from the wind, or you know, if you're lucky and the wind direction's right, you set up a drift. You know, if you can paddle into the wind and drift with the wind along the shoreline or something, you can do it. You can fish these kayak tournaments with like no equipment. You know, you don't need it. Like, just get out and try it. Take my mindset of there's no expectations on you. You know, like Cincinnati kayak fishing, it's a 3 fish limit, 8-inch minimum, and they're very inexpensive. They're like $25 or something. Buckeye kayak's only like $36, but you know, they have a 5 fish limit, 12-inch minimum. But you know, these are friendly tournaments. Everyone's really nice. They'll help you out. Just get out there, grab a buddy if you want, do it alone if you want. It doesn't matter. You know, get out and try it. Enter the online. You know, the KBF online was my training grounds because I was afraid of people pointing and laughing at me, you know, and so I did it alone. But I don't want to talk about, you know, these cool kayaks, these higher end kayaks that are going to cost you like $3,000, you know, and price out so many people who just want to, you know, fish and try this out. So get and fish. Contact any one of us if you want, you know, some tips on how to do it in a paddle kayak, how to do it inexpensively. You know, reach out to anyone you see on social media, reach out to the groups, the Cincinnati kayak fishing, the Buckeye kayak fishing groups. I mean, everyone's nice. Someone on there will offer you advice and help you out and, you know, get you out there.
Yeah.
Drew Gregory's a great example of that, man. I mean, he's still in a paddle kayak and he's still cashing checks.
Yeah.
Well, he's awesome at fishing skinny water, like where everybody else is out, like fishing offshore.
Yeah.
Drew will still be paddling up creeks to these, you know, major lakes that they fish on in the Hobie BOS. He's just a machine with it, man. He knows where to go to find the good fish, even if it's, you know, 10 yards wide.
Yeah,
it's
even
amazing.
on the Susquehanna, like everybody else is using a Hobie, you know, and he's paddling a kayak in a flooded Susquehanna River. It's pretty crazy.
So, Melissa, what do you think is your biggest gripe with the Hobie Lynx so far? If you had to choose something that you didn't like about it.
Gosh, everything's perfect about it except for the hull strength. You know, we're finding out as time goes on that it was built with a construction very similar to like a stand-up paddleboard, and it's not necessarily meant to take the beating on like a shallow river. I don't want to say anything bad about it because I love it. You know, I mean, it's such a good boat. It's so great. I wish that they had taken the 45 pounds and made it 50 pounds and put a hull guard on it. Yeah. You know, now I've heard there is a second generation coming out. And I hope that they have seen, what's been going on with, people are buying this as a riverboat, and it's great in current. It's great in the deeper rivers, but it's not going to be great if you want to drag it over a bunch of shallow river rocks. That hull, it's got a super thin skin and then fiberglass reinforcement and then a foam core. And that's amazing for the lightweight, and it's amazing for the performance and the stability and the agility and the turning and all that stuff. It's perfect for every application I have put it through, except for running into something like something sharp. It does not want to run into something sharp. So I guess that would be my complaint. Is there a way to put a hull guard on it, or some sort of reinforcement? I'll give up the 45 pounds, take it up to 50, take it up to 55. I don't care. Just make it so that I can accidentally run into a tree or run into a rock and know that I'm okay. I'm not really delicate with my stuff. I'm a little hard on my stuff. So I want a boat that, like, first time I put in the Great Miami River, I just heard about like ick in that water, and so I didn't really want to like stand in the water. So I put in really close to the water and kind of scooted, and it's just not, I want a boat that I can do that with. And I want the Lynx that I can do that with. So that's my request to Hobie, is put something on that hull. I don't care if it takes 5 or 10 pounds. That's the only thing that makes it not the absolute perfect boat ever invented.
Yeah,
I'm sure they will add something like that. I mean, they have to, because I kind of think they were marketing it as a riverboat, right?
I've never seen it marketed as a riverboat. People just instantly started snapping it up for that because it's so lightweight. They are marketing the iTrek 9 ultralight inflatable and the iTrek 11 that will be coming out in 2022 as riverboats, and remote lake kind of boats. And those are perfect because, from what I understand, those are made out of the same kind of material as like a whitewater rafting inflatable thing. So I guess we're supposed to have total faith that they're not going to pop, And I got to say, the one I took out yesterday did great. I dragged that over a lot of stuff and kind of beat it about on the rocks, and it did great. I had the I9. I would want the I11, I think.
Right.
Because that's 9'5" versus 11 foot something. But I mean, that thing is only 20 pounds hull weight. And it deflates into a backpack. You can check it on an airplane. So they're talking about, you take that boat and you go to the remote glacial lake, that has never seen a kayak, that, you go to places that have never seen a lure, and like, oh my gosh, that would be cool. But like, we had to pick up on the Great Miami. First of all, I had no idea the Great Miami had shallow parts. I thought it was this big, scary river. So we fished from Tip City to Taylorsville Dam. And the river was really low, so a lot of it was dragging. And we came to one part that the river was actually blocked by a big tree. So Brad's like, oh, yeah, I caught a 19-inch largemouth or smallmouth off that tree, right? So, no, we had to actually go the other way and pick up the kayaks and kind of portage them. And if I hadn't brought so much stuff with me, that would have been really easy with this little 20-pound boat.
Yeah.
So the Hobie Lynx, though, but I don't know if you guys had seen it, but Chad Hoover did a video about it, and that boat is, I think it's thermoformed. It's not done like in the traditional, not traditional, but
it's not rotomolded like a kayak.
It's not rotomolded, so it's not got the thickness to it. It's gonna have the weak points, just like a Pelican or whatever. You know what I mean?
Is Brad busy pulling up the diagram of what it's made out of?
I'm looking.
It's on that same page as the specs.
They're doing it a little bit differently though. So what it is that it's a good idea, because with the plastic shortage, making boats like this is a lot easier than rotomold. So it's a good move by Hobie, because they're going to be able to fill a gap that a lot of other companies aren't really doing, unless it's kind of the cheaper kayaks, like the Walmart ones, that sort of thing. But I mean, knowing Hobie, you'll see improvements within it. I mean, first generation, and it's like that with all the companies.
Yep.
It'll get better as they kind of re-engineer whatever they need to. The good thing is, though, is the way those boats are being made, it is an easier way of actually fixing it, as opposed to if we never rotomolded boat, they have to redo the whole mold again, or not the whole thing, and it costs a ton of money to do that. Like, they have to make adjustments and, sometimes even possibly rebuild a whole new mold.
Right.
This way, they do not have to do that. So hopefully we will see the improvements that Melissa is requesting, Hobie.
I mean, I have a lot of faith in Hobie. I believe that their engineering department is on the forefront of, pioneering new things. Someone has to be out there pushing the envelope. Someone has to be out there trying the new stuff. And sometimes the new stuff doesn't work on the first generation. Yep. The one thing I don't quite understand is why didn't they give a ton of people these boats? They have all these sponsored people. Why didn't they give Christine Fisher one of these and say, take it for a month and go through everything you could possibly put it through, and then find out what was wrong with it before releasing it to the public and letting us find out? Yeah. But again, I think that they're amazing with their engineering, always pushing the envelope, always trying to improve, for the sport. And I believe that the second generation will be absolutely perfect and amazing. So, but if Hobie wants to give me a demo kayak of any sorts, I'd be happy to test it out for you.
Heck yeah.
That's pretty cool graphic, Brad.
Yeah, it is thermoform, like you mentioned.
Right. So you can see, it has the foam core and then a little bit of fiberglass just to strengthen it. And then it's a really, really thin skin. So, I mean, it's totally understandable why when it impacts a rock, it isn't happy, know?
Especially around here, because most of the time when you're hitting a rock and it's tearing a hole in your kayak, you are not hitting a natural rock. You are usually hitting concrete.
Yep.
That us douchebag human beings have decided to throw in the water, and or something crazy like rebar or whatever. Today I stopped by the river and looked down, and I'm like, look at that rebar. There was some insane pieces, it's not. I'm just joking around, because actually that man-made concrete that we keep dumping is actually helping. So, and it's creating really good smallmouth habitats. The biggest smallmouth I ever caught was with Brad on the river.
There's a surprise.
And it was in the spring, and it was by a big giant, like 90-degree angle rock sticking up out of the water that was like a lot bigger than what you can normally see in the springtime. It was only like a 2-foot section of it sticking out, but the thing was like basically half of a wall that's underneath the water, and I caught it right next to it. And so that's the good thing, is it creates habitat, it creates current breaks, it holds down on the erosion. Because I mean, if we didn't have most of that rock like that, I think our waterways in Southwest Ohio would be in a lot worse shape. So, but I
agree.
Because in West Carrollton, Brad, it's hilarious. There's a whole side, it's just poured concrete. They've been poured concrete to hold the bank in there from it eroding away. So
those are my favorite spots to hit, especially big bends in the river with just concrete on the bank.
Yep.
Deep, like 10 foot, 10, 15 foot. That's my favorite spots to fish, man.
But they're awesome for smallmouth, but they are, holy crap, the easiest place to lose oars. So if you start fishing them, you're like, all right, here we go. Let's lose some hooks. Let's lose some baits, because you will. You can try not to, but you kind of have to get down to where those fish are. So
there's a stretch in Hamilton that's like that big bend on the river with riprap. It looks like something AK Steel just dumped in a ton of like. It's weird. I can't really explain it. There's just like metal all in the water. I get snagged every time I fish it.
And there's fish there.
Oh yeah. I've seen them sometimes. I'm laughing. I'm like, I'll stand up on certain points and you can look down. And you're like, look at those two big smallmouth hanging out between those two giant man-made sharp rocks. And I'm like, I know the instant I throw my bait down there, like it's just sweeping underneath some giant slab, you know, and it's like you're not even going to get close to the fish.
They're looking up at you like, yeah, try it, buddy. Just try it.
There's this one section that every time I go to it, I will still throw a bait in there. And every time I lose a bait there, I'm like, dude, I mean, it's got to be so many lures down there. And I'm like, it's just so bad. There's some parts like next to dams I always laugh about where there's been a log in there forever, and you can hook into it and you can tell it's fishing line and like 900 lures are stuck to it too, like because you'll watch everybody and their brother fish on those dams and you're just laughing because everybody's getting stuck in the same exact spot. Like, there's a guy that I met on the Miamisburg Dam who when was it? I think he said, it might have been the summer when the water starts to get real low like it is right now. And he takes his kayak up. He's like, it's the only time of year you can really kind of get up next to that dam safely, even though you really still shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. But he's like, there's this log or rock or something. It's a log, I think. He goes, and I get my jerkbait stuck on it all the time. And he goes, and I go fish my jerkbaits back off, and then I get a bunch of other tackle too.
That's funny.
He does it every year. He goes, at least once or twice a year, I go up to that log and I pull my baits back off.
Heck yeah, that's smart.
Right. So
there's a crankbait in a tree up by Tip City. I just sacrificed it because that tree had a lot of spiders on it.
Oh yeah, I'm not touching it either.
That's a big no. No.
Brad, do you remember when your brother got his whopper plopper stuck up in the tree that one time?
I still don't understand that. That was like 30 feet high. I'm like, how did you do that?
It happens. You get excited about a cast. You're like, oh man, I got to get that fish. And then bam, up in the tree.
But it was like straight up though. That tree was so high.
He's not a river guy. So every time he's like, man, every time I go fishing with you on the river, something stupid happens. I'm not going anymore. He hates the river. I'm like, whatever, dude.
And you're probably catching like 19, 20-inch smallmouth to make things better, right?
Not that day. It was a pretty bad day.
Yeah. I started off my trip with a Tokyo rig tied on. Yeah. I had bought one like a couple months ago, like before you started talking about them. And I tried it once, but I tried it somewhere with a really mucky bottom and I hated it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, screw this, Lauren. I just kind of threw it in the corner. And then you started posting all these pictures and I'm like, gosh, I guess I should use it. So I tied it on and then about 15 minutes in the trip, cut it off and didn't even throw it.
Oh, man.
I'm like, you know what I should have on is a crankbait.
Yeah.
It always comes down to a crankbait for me, though.
It's a super weird bait that Brad's throwing in the way he's doing it because it's not even intended for that.
I know, dude.
It is like a punching rig for like mats because what it's supposed to do is like punch through with that weight, but just let it be. Once it punches through with a mat, it's going to let that bait sit up off the bottom a little bit.
Right.
And then it's supposed to come back up and it lays back down again together and come back out. It is super hard to throw those things in that specific way, what it was actually intended for out of a kayak. Because usually when you're punching mats and you're on a bass boat, you're way up higher. Mm-hmm. So the angle that you're going down is better. When you're in a kayak, your line is still kind of going in at a
you can do it on a Hobie Lynx.
At a 45 to the mats, and I hated it, dude. I was like, I'm still dragging too much weeds, and this presentation is supposed to be not completely weedless, but
let me know if you want to borrow my Lynx. You can stand up and punch on that easily.
Yeah,
I do want to try it actually.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'll meet up with you guys.
Dude, yeah. I haven't even tried the Hobie 360, and like all my friends have them.
Yeah, I spent a whole day in Chris Yalk's 360 last November, something like that. Thing was awesome.
They're like a barge, though.
Yeah.
Mike's always like, you need to try it. You need to try it. I'm like, yeah, dude, I want to, but I know like I'll get in here and I'm going to like it. And then you're going to go back in the same day. You're going to be like, all right, I'm over this.
Yeah.
paddling shit. So.
No, the only time I've ever been in a 360 is when I took the Hobie out for the initial demo. After I'd been on it for a little bit, Bert was with us, and Bert says, I want to try it. So we switched, and I got in his 360, and he started catching. We were at Sharon Woods, like, who catches fish at that little dinky lake? He gets on a frog bite, wouldn't give me the Lynx back. And so I'm trying to like pedal around, and I'm like, how does this damn 360 thing work? But after the Lynx is like, I mean, I don't want to say race car. It's not exactly race car, but like what's
Car.
maybe, yeah, but that's kind of negative. I don't know, somewhere in there, like something small and fast and quick and agile. But
a lynx.
It is just like a lynx. Yeah, people are like, "Have you named it?" I'm all, "It's the lynx." Yeah. I mean, duh.
It is the perfect name for it.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah, because someone told me lynxes even like water. They actually fish.
Oh, didn't know that.
I didn't either. I have not checked that. Don't quote me, but
I actually had a few more questions about this. Are you mounting a fish finder on it, and do you have to use a transducer arm?
So the Lynx does come with a transducer mount in the underside, but since it is technically like a borrowed kayak, and I had Brian Tacey at Strictly Sail Kayak set it up for me, I didn't even own a fish finder. Sean Skidmore kicked me down his old fish finder, which again, it's in the list of like these amazing things that just keep happening that I don't really understand why they're happening or why people are doing nice things. But thanks, Sean, for the fish finder. Never had one before. So he gave me his old it's a Humminbird 7 Helix 7, but I guess it doesn't save waypoints, and so he used this. He used to go buy new fish finder, and I got it for free. So, but I do have the over the side transducer arm with it. For me, at first I was like, oh, I want one of the fancy, like, transducer mount things. And it's totally set up with the wiring. There's holes in it for wiring and everything. But it turns out that I think it works out better because I keep taking this thing into these ridiculously like lily pad fields and stuff. And you can just, hook the arm up onto the boat and get it out of the way. Whereas other people I'm with are like, oh man, I hope my transducer isn't like, getting messed up. So it is transducer ready, but I have the over the side transducer arm.
That's cool. I didn't realize it had a transducer spot. I like that.
Yeah, I think Hobie works with what's the one that's not Humminbird?
Lowrance.
Yeah. So it's Lowrance ready. And I think you have to do some sort of adapter thing for Humminbird. I mean, honestly, I'm totally ignorant about the whole electronics thing. I haven't even figured out how to set the clock on mine yet. It's an hour off.
It's all good. That's cool.
It's really cool being able to see the bottom. That makes a huge difference.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
Treat it like you have your other fishing adventures. Just go out there. Don't even take any rods. Seriously, that's what I ended up doing because I went fishing probably like 10 times. And I'm like, why do I have this stupid thing? Like, I don't understand it. I don't know how to operate it. I don't know how to do anything. So one day we were going camping at Kaiser Lake and we were going to fish. And I got there a day earlier than everybody. So I got there earlier in the morning and everybody's coming in the afternoon. So I went out early, didn't take any fishing rods, and just went and cruised around and messed around with it, and until I could start seeing things clearly. So that was where I got it tuned in. And I've talked with Brad before when I was like, I knew I had it dialed in when I could finally see the roadbed in Kaiser. So
yeah.
And I'd gone over it 100 times and couldn't figure out what was going on. And part of my issue was moving sideways with the side view. What it'll do is it'll blur it. So it'll like kind of take your image, what you should be seeing, and it's stretching it in a way.
Yeah.
And so what I started having to realize is that if I'm going to be looking for stuff, I need to be moving in a straight line and not left or right. So, and then also kind of mess with the sensitivity and the depth and that sort of thing. But yeah, just spend some time with it, because the big thing, Melissa, that I like about my fish finder, because I don't have a fancy one, I just have a Striker, a Garmin Striker 7 SV, and it doesn't save waypoints. I can mark them like as is, but the if I remember correctly, the data kind of goes away. It doesn't save itself. Like I can mark it like as I'm that day, but as soon as I shut it off, I think it goes away. I don't know.
Mhm.
But I don't have a map chip either. So, but my favorite thing is side view. I absolutely love it. And when you mix it with the traditional and the downscan and you have side, the beauty of side vision is being able to see stuff that's, 50 feet out. And you're like, oh, there's a good rock pile over here or whatever. It's kind of hard to see fish on side view, but it's very, very awesome to find structure. So you might be able to find like a tree in the water, that you will never ever be able to see it, unless you went directly over it. And what else, Brad? I like running all three at the same time when I'm fishing. If I'm just moving to a spot, I'll run side only. But if I start think I'm seeing fish, because you can kind of tell that you start seeing fish, especially if they're up higher in the water column, you'll see it on the side view. But I like running both because you can kind of use the traditional and the down vision and kind of take out what's a bass versus a crappie or whatever. So, but I know that's my favorite part about it. It had nothing to do with, it'd be really awesome to have my waypoints and stuff like that, like saved. And one day I'll have a nice fish finder like that. But my biggest, hugest benefit, I think, was side view. So
yeah, I honestly don't use side view or waypoints that much at all.
You should.
I don't know, dude. I just don't.
And
like
the river, probably not so much. But
I don't fish offshore though either on the lake.
Yeah, see,
So
that's where it really helps. That's where it shines. When you get off that bank, because when you're next to the bank line, you're like, wow, you can see what you're looking at. You're fishing laydowns, and you can even see the rock piles or whatever. But yeah, get out there, just sit down and just pay attention to fish finder. Don't take any rods with you and mess with it, and try to go somewhere. Ask Bert or somebody, say, hey, can you point me in the right direction? I want to go see if I can find this and zero in and be able to tell that's what I'm looking at. And then like what you can do is mess around with Kurt's really good to talk to about. Kurt Smits. He did a really good video. This is a long time ago, probably a few years back, about what kind of frequencies you should be using in a kayak. Because what will happen is if you are using something that's pinging too fast, what it'll do is it'll ping, 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 and it's taking basically, if you think about a still shot or slices, and if you have something like a fish go by, it's going to make the fish look longer. It's going too slow, I think. That's how it was. I can't remember how he said it. Try to explain it. But if you're going too fast, it has the opposite effect. So like you might make a fish that's small, it's going to look really big because of the ping rate and because of the way it's shooting, and you don't want it to do that. So it's definitely a lot different in a kayak versus a boat because a boat's moving a lot faster. So
yeah, it's funny because Greg Blanchard hit his YouTube videos. He'll come. Like the fish on his fish finder will look like, he says spaghetti. He's like, oh, look, I'm on top of spaghetti. He'll drop shot right on top of them, start catching them.
Yeah.
I mean, like the whole screen is just like a bunch of wavy lines.
Yeah. But it definitely helps. So, it's just a suggestion. Just go out there and spend time with just that. Don't take anything else.
I don't know if I could go out without a rod. I actually went out yesterday to Cowan, and I just wanted to, see what it looked like with the fish finder. I'd only been there one time, and that was tournament day with the fish finder. So I wanted to see what like some of the banks I hadn't hit looked like. It's always a guess, and I have Navionics on my phone, but I wanted to see like what's down there. How steep is this, and could I find anything really cool on the? You always have this dream of finding some like obscure rock pile offshore that no one knows about, especially on a lake like Cowan. It's like, so, and Michael Grimsley warned me. He says, you're going to get sucked into this obsession with finding something offshore that no one else knows about. And I'm all, no, I'm not. And then here I am, like spending the whole day yesterday, like zigzagging Cowan Lake. But I had a rod with me. I was fishing too, because I can't go out and not fish. That would drive me nuts.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
No, there's no way. I can look at the bottom and fish at the same time.
I had to do it. It was the way, I mean, I would go out and kind of like look at it and fish, but when I was started to try to make the adjustments to it, because if you're on the bank, you're barely seeing anything, like, because it's shallow, so the cone for your down vision and stuff like that you're not seeing a whole lot. But the deeper water, it's getting wider. So, but yeah, to kind of get it dialed in, I was like, all right, man, don't fish. Just sit there and mess with these frequencies and this ping rate, and it's called ping rate. It's called refresh rate. It's
chart speed.
Yeah. Every one of them uses some stupid different terminology. I wish everybody would just use the same kind of thing. But when you get it dialed in, you're going to love it, because you're going to be like, oh my God, there's a kayak down there. Like, and you're going to be able to see it so well. Like, you're like, oh my God, there's like a bicycle.
I mean, I think I got lucky because I think Skidmore did all that already.
Yeah. He probably does all that.
I know he gave it to me and then he walked away and then he came running back full speed, like, give me the chip out of it.
Like, no.
But then he told me that it doesn't save anything. So I don't really understand what he thought he was leaving it in there. But
I'm lying to you.
Oh, you need to find out his river spots for me.
Dude, he doesn't say anything, which is probably good.
I'm just messing.
Yeah.
I'm just messing. He's an awesome angler.
Yeah. It's super fun to camp with too.
Yeah. Well, guys, you ready to wrap this up?
Brad, was that all your questions? You got it all?
Yeah, I mean, we hit it.
Okay.
Good episode.
Well, Melissa, I appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk with me and Brad.
Yeah, it's fun.
And I wish you the best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks. You too, guys. Thank goodness all the river tournaments are over with now. We can go back to these lakes.
Rivers are where it's at. But everybody, thanks again for listening, and tune in next week. We'll see you later.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jig Masters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com